Hi, I'm Daniel Crumbach, Head of Science and Education at PNOE. Welcome to the PNOE Medical Case Review video podcast series. PNOE created this video podcast series in order to explore how metabolic analysis can either identify potential medical conditions or visualize the ramifications of pre-existing medical conditions on function and performance. We will present case reviews demonstrating how either of these situations were isolated through metabolic testing, and then discuss how medical interventions and/or an appropriate exercise prescription help to improve function or performance. We hope you enjoy the series. On this next case, we have another respiratory case. Jason, would you mind introducing this particular case?
Yeah, so you have the screen up, so it's great. Male 50, BMI put him into the overweight category. I think it was like 29 BMI based on those numbers. So he was referred again by a specialist. He was having, actually, he's a volunteer fighter of as many jobs that he has. He has about three jobs, busy guy. But one is a volunteer firefighter. And he was complaining that he was burning through his oxygen too fast in his tank. So this gentleman has a medical history of sarcoidosis. So so that's where we came. We performed a ramp test using PNOE and MOXIE to identify where he might be limited and what way we might be able to help him with being able to prolong his use of oxygen.
Well, for the benefits of our audience, can you just give a layman's explanation of what a sarcoidosis is?
Pretty much just lung damage. I mean, he's going to be left with lung damage, the long and short of it, which kind of leads into where we might go with testing, because we want to see what his spirometry readings were for that very reason, right? To get an idea of his capacity. So we did do spirometry first to identify his respiratory capacity. So just looking over here at predicted norms for a gentleman of this gender, height. So his FEV1 would have been 3.7, FVC 4.67, and the ratio is 0.79. Those would have been the norms. So this gentleman scored, again, FEV1 2.97, 3.64, and 0.64. So right away, we identified a respiratory capacity limitation. But
let's go into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, FVC is forced vital capacity. That's the amount of air you can breathe out after a deep breath in, and kind of represents the usable volume that you can store in your lungs. Of course, this would be an important metric with somebody with that diagnosis. And what we're looking for is we're comparing them to norms based upon height, age, gender, and ethnicity. And what we're looking for is, the number as well as the percentage of norm. So what was his percentage of norm for FVC?
Do you have that in front of you? I just have the numbers. I think it was pretty good. Percentage of norm was 0.6 something, was it? 0.64?
So he had his FVC was 78% of normal.
Okay.
Now, the other metric we look at with spirometry is called FEV1, and that's the forced expiratory volume in 1 second. That represents how powerfully he can breathe out. Extremely important when you go to higher respiration rates or breathing frequencies at higher intensities. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the amount of air you can move in 1 second is very important when you're breathing 50, 55 breaths a minute. His FEV1 was 79% of predicted. And then we look at a ratio of what percentage of his lung volume, his FVC, can he get out in the first 1 second? And we're looking for 78% to be normal for his norms. And he was at 64%. All of which indicated that he had quite a severe capacity issue. Some people will have normal FVC and low FEV1s and therefore low ratios. But in this particular case, the sarcoidosis had affected his ability to breathe, his volume that he could breathe, and how quickly or how much volume he could move in 1 second, which would severely affect his ability, his function.
Mm-hmm. But I think the benefit of using the test, now to follow up with that, is to see how well he actually uses the air that he has, which is some of the things you get into the course about the capability versus capacity. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Absolutely. So what we want to know is, okay, is it just a restriction of capacity, or when he starts to do exercise at different intensities, can he use the volume that he currently has? And so, again, just to orient everybody, this is a treadmill ramp test, 3 minutes warm up, a ramp test increasing speeds every 1 minute to exhaustion, 2-minute recovery. The metrics on the board are the steps and the speed, the heart rate, the breathing frequency, the lung volumes that he's able to breathe per breath. And from the MOXIE, we have the SMO2, or the percentage of hemoglobin loaded with oxygen. It gives us an indication of oxygen delivery and utilization at the muscle. So, and I'll remind you that the legend is here and the scales are here. What you can see here, and you'll see this often with people with respiratory capacity issues, you'll see a very flat volume line here, their VT, or tidal volume. They just can't get above a certain amount. So it just looks like just an absolute flat line. What we do is we look and see, well, he can breathe 2.4 liters. And we know what his FEV1 is, and we expect him to be able to use about 75 to 85% of his FEV1, not the predicted. And he does. He actually does more than that. So what?
Oh yeah, he was a rock star.
Yeah, this means this is a bit depressing, because we can't make him more efficient in his capacity. He's already using his volumes as well as he can. If we do not change his respiratory capacity, we can't make a change really to his capability during exercise. What I do like about our data is we can see that despite having this limitation in his volume, he does not hyperventilate. He keeps normal breathing frequencies at all intensities. So we know that he's not responding by hyperventilating and causing all kinds of other problems. The other thing you'll notice, of course, just like on the first case, if he's maximized his respiratory system or exercise, what are we seeing with his ability to load the hemoglobin with oxygen? And we see it's only 39%. Even with light exercise, when it should elevate, because he's stimulating delivery greater than utilization, he drops. He's at 20. He's at 18%. No, 26%.
Mm-hmm.
26% at a warm up speed, and he bottoms out at 18%. He's getting no delivery, and we know that this one, it's not because he's doing the best he can with the volumes that he has to deliver oxygen, but he just can't do it. So the answer for this individual is we must change their capacity, which means we need to do respiratory training with what I strongly recommend is the IDI P100 device, in which we can control volumes and resistance, because we're not interested. I don't want this person doing IMT, or because the fact that the worst thing we can do is put resistance on an already limited system. What we want to do is we want to promote diaphragmatic mobility, good thoracic spine and rib mobility, and we want to get the diaphragm to move through a larger range so that he can increase his volumes and improve his expiratory power. So this is the joy of the IDI P100, is that we can set the parameters to be very specific to training this system. Once we get them to be able to breathe the volumes that we want to, that would be within normal, then we would move over and help them using the P100, help them be able to use it during activity. We would expect to see a natural change of like from 2.4 liters to more like 3 liters. And of course, that's going to stimulate delivery, which is going to mean that the muscle metabolism will be in better shape for producing ATP and performing. So that's the particular case on a previously diagnosed respiratory condition. Do you have any further comments, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that I mean, when you look at, again, another benefit, we can look at the carbohydrate and fat use with this gentleman, and this SMO2 use. He right now he has a, we'd say, a delivery limitation, but it doesn't mean that he has great utilization.
No.
And that's the thing about it, right? So right now, you're going to address those things, but later you're going to see that shift. If we do it correctly, we should see him shift over to then have a, yeah.
We can almost assume he doesn't have good utilization because he only drops from 39% to 18%. He only drops 21.
Yeah, I think it's just he doesn't drop much at all, and he's exactly. And then when you look at the metabolic, like the carbohydrates and fat, his fat max was at about 104 heart rate. So if you move down the graph, you can see about where that was.
Let me bring that up, and I'll get rid of.
There we go.
I'll get rid of a few things here so we can see what's going on here.
You can see his crossover.
One of the joys of of our platform is the ability to bring up different metrics. So using VO2 and VCO2 data from the metabolic analysis from the PNOE, we're capable of looking at this represents fat use in this color here, and this represents carbohydrate use in this color here. And you'll see with this gentleman, obviously, if you're not delivering oxygen well, then the muscle metabolism can't process the fat well, and you'll end up going to carbohydrate very quickly. And you'll see even at the lowest intensities, like this is standing still, he's using a mixed fuel system. And what we refer to as the crossover happens extremely early. So where the fat crosses the carbohydrate, here is, at 99 beats. This, do we address this through training? Yes, we can. Because let's face it, the metabolism will be negatively affected by this as well. But by changing the breathing, we can make massive changes to his ability to burn fat. And I think that's, if we look at improving their cellular health, that's extremely important to their function.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting add-on to that case.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing this case. It shows, once again, the value of having metabolic analysis to be able to confirm, having the diagnosis of having sarcoidosis. You're left with still assuming there's some kind of respiratory issue, but without spirometry, metabolic analysis, and even the addition of MOXIE to look at oxygen delivery and utilization, we're able to pinpoint the exact issue and have a very clear training approach that we would use with this particular person to improve their health and function.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jason. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
To book a sales consult, contact PNOE Sales at info@mypnoe.com. To learn more about our products and services, attend our 3-part PNOE webinar series. Register by contacting Zoe at zoe@mypnoe.com. To learn more about the PNOE Metabolic Analysis Certification Program, view our video at community.mypnoe.com or contact Zoe at zoe@mypnoe.com. And don't forget to join us on Instagram.